Well, hey, good morning. I hope you guys can hear me this morning. Last week we had, I don't know, I went on for 15, 20 minutes and talking to myself, and there was nothing. So I hope you guys can are with me this morning. Good morning. Welcome to everybody. Appreciate you dropping by. And we have some. Oh, okay, good. Thank you so much that let me know that it was all happening there. So yeah, that hopefully that will kind of tie in this morning. So here's an unintended consequence for you. What I intend to do this morning. Good morning, Belicious and Ted Summer and Sue Finelli and Winston, Messy Garage, Mark Bloom, Flat Accord Music, Jason Gay, we got Joe Ray, Winston. Hey, thanks for showing up, Billingtano, and Jay Armstrong. Hopefully our David, if you're out there, best. Hey, man, really got you on my mind today and the other folks as you're going out to Trafalgar Square today to fight the man. Hey, Martin, welcome. So, yeah, there's an unintended consequence today, which is that what I intend to present, again, one of those kind of last minute things, but came about, well, it is exactly the opposite of what I had intended to have this entire channel be about, which was, of course, the Awakening Project, and how and why people wake up and what we can do to wake others up, and never specific research on its own. So many people do that so well, and there's no point in me just reiterating what other people say unless I have something maybe new to offer. And usually if I do, I'll just go on their show and talk about it. So this was not the intent, but this sort of came to me overnight. There's just some action, and it's things that you've probably heard already from me and other folks. I'm not the first one to speak about this, but certainly there's been some, I don't know, activity and developments, and we'll cover all that this morning. So again, welcome to everyone, and a pleasure having you with us here today. So let's, I guess, jump right into it. There are a number of different things that we discuss when we talk about, again, once you have this awakening process and you realize that you have been lied to on an epic scale, almost unimaginably epic, how many things and aspects of our life that have been not only misrepresented, but in some cases entirely inverted from the opposite of what they appear to be. And it has been said that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and instead, much of this evidence is not forthcoming, or is clearly, again, a sham, just cut out of whole cloth. It doesn't even appear that much of it is true. For example, the Scalagerian timeline, the basics of Western history, which ultimately became world history because of the influence of the Jesuits. And again, the Jesuits, if you're not aware of them, the Order of Jesus, Society of Jesus, created in about, 1540, if I remember correctly, and Ignatius Loyola. And he apparently had, you can just kind of look him up and look into it, but he had what he considered a supernatural experience. I don't know from what he describes whether that was dad, because it just doesn't look like it. But apparently he did have a supernatural experience of some kind, but what it led to was him creating what essentially became the strong arm, or sort of the SS of the Roman Catholic Church. And they were the military wing and enforced a bunch of stuff, but they also took over. Thanks, Bob. Sheesh. Jesuits, yeah. So this group essentially became not only the enforcers, but the holders of all information. They became the academics. As such, they took over science as we know it, because the church controlled pretty much everything in Western Europe. To such an extent, they controlled kings and nobles and, everything. And this is all things that people that we know about already. It's not not a surprise to many people. But if you're unaware, they took over, again, all of what we would call information technology of the day. They gathered up all books. It was a crime punishable by death for hundreds of years, so we're told, to even have one copied page of the Bible. Even handwritten notes of the Psalms could get you burned at the stake. Again, interesting that many people consider the Bible as we know it to be specifically created and written by the Catholic Church as a form of control, but keeping it from people under penalty of death is not effective in that regard. Anyway, just different ideas to challenge those thoughts. But ultimately, the point I want to get to is that the Jesuits sort of took the whole thing over and put their influence over the entire world because of their academics, and even getting China, who had thousands of years of contiguous history, to change their views on things like cosmology. Because as you probably are already well aware, most ancient cultures had what we now call or refer to as the snow globe idea of cosmology, in that there was a flat and stationary Earth on pillars of some kind, surrounded by water both outside and above and below, as well as what we would consider a dome or a firmament of some kind. What you see now kind of indicates sort of, again, an electromagnetic view of that. And I think it probably is, to an extent, electromagnetic from what we can tell. In any case, the entire history, what we can go through, and for a variety of different ways, we can use dendral technology, or looking at, dendral history, or the tree growth, tree rings, counting tree rings, and we can look at architecture. There was apparently no buildings whatsoever, no structure of any kind built for the better part of 500 years. That just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So it would appear through, again, a variety of different methods of looking at it, including Fomenko's work on mathematics and corresponding basically algorithms and formulas to look at how these patterns that appear in nature. And there are many of them, including, the Fibonacci sequence appears everywhere, as does the golden ratio and pi, and these different things appear all over in nature, and we see them over and over again. They also appear to occur in at least contiguous history as so far as we can prove. So if you go, and then they have done, modern man has done these sort of things, looking for novelty and that sort of stuff. But when we apply mathematics to what we know in terms of social history, there appears to be patterns that develop. And when those patterns not only exactly repeat, not similarly, but exactly, and there are big spaces where those patterns would not occur, we know that there's something wrong with that. And so Fomenko wrote a number of books, which is now called The Alternate Timeline, or The Alternate History. And again, I think in his research, and this is to be the point of that, he discovered that the extant sources on which most of the Scaligerarian from Joseph Scaliger put together, all of Western history pretty much comes from this one guy. And of course, the Jesuit priest, and they were combined with the Benedictine monks, who were the scribes. And so when they did an effort to look at these things, what they discovered was not only most of, and not just some, but most of all of the extant sources, that is the original materials, original documents on which Western history is based, it turns out over 80% are proven forgeries. Their claim, of course, is that these are simply copies of the originals. The originals did not survive, and these are remaining copies. But when you look very closely at them, it appears that they are just made from the ground up, made out of whole cloth. And for, again, reasons, for power and control, to establish timelines, to establish history, and largely it seems, as you look at it from a 10,000-foot view, to destroy the history of the world in just a few generations, so that no one was the wiser at what had gone before. Leaving a few things here and there that might have been inaccurate or might have only told part of it, but they certainly seem to go around the world claiming that they're bringing the gospel to people, and instead looking for evidences and vestiges of an ancient civilization that might have spoke the same language or had artifacts or knew of the history, and summarily wiped them out in an amazing genocide that lasted a very long time. But we can suspect that at minimum several hundred years, maybe 1,000 years or more, simply added arbitrarily to what we're told is the timeline, and then again going backwards. They now tell us we live in a universe that's 14.7 billion years old. Again, with nothing to prove that other than the idea of a Big Bang theory. Again, made by guess who? A Jesuit. As is most of the astronomy. Nearly all the world's major telescopes are at least run by, owned by, or influenced by the Catholic Church, and specifically the Jesuits, including the Lucifer telescope in the United States. So, yeah, interesting stuff. So again, if we look back at this idea, it is pretty easy to see that most of the things that we're told, so that's just one aspect, our history, but archaeology, of course, ancient history of every kind, language even. It seems as if, for example, Latin, most of the major works in science and history were written for, again, as far as we can tell, hundreds of years, at least back to the 1600s, which is about as far back as I can go consecutively, maybe 1500, maybe about the time that we're told the Society of Jesus came together, interestingly enough. However, again, the Hebrews, the Jews, appear to have what they consider a consistent history, but it seems that they're also, those at the top there are in league with those at the top in the Catholic Church, and all the people at the top of near the top of the pyramid are all in bed together. As a result, again, we can count, I think, on the fact that what we've been described is wrong. So exactly, how would we know? And we were shown, pictures I was growing up that looked very much like photographs and kind of implied that they were. Of course, they're called images, but showing where the Earth was in relationship to the Milky Way, showing the entire Milky Way, even kind of from a distance. So it's impossible, of course, as we know. What it seems that they have done is, again, take all real history and knowledge and not only hidden it away, but inverted it, turned it upside down, and told us a complete lie, a fabrication. All the world is indeed a stage, and we are merely players, performers, and portrayers, each another's audience outside the gilded cage. Thank you, Neil Peart. But this is what we're told. Is this what we now? Many of us, and a growing number of people, what we would call, awake. And I don't like all the terms they give us, woke, right? Even the truther community, because again, as I've said, we spend most of our time unveiling lies rather than being able to find the truth, which seems sometimes elusive. But my experience and my view, my perspective, and I know this is not unfamiliar to most of you who have listened before, is that the real, true, objective truth comes from Dad, our Creator. And he has said that if anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask. And so I just would always say, go to Dad first. I can give you my views on it, but I always reserve the right to be wrong. Expect to be in some cases, if not for just information drought. You've got data anemia. You just don't know. And much of it they've hidden, they lied about, they destroyed, even going back, right, the burning of the library in Alexandria. So we know that they have robbed us of our history, also our identity, not letting us know who we are. They would tell us that we are insignificant specks of stardust floating in an infinite sea of space, and that therefore we are lost at sea, and that's comes from the papal bull that says that we are all souls lost at sea, and therefore the Catholic Church, the Holy See, has the right to own us, and they are our appointed leader. We reject that, at least I think most of us here do. I certainly do not consent to what the story they have told, that we happened by random accident, everything perfectly balanced. Even in the story that they tell, even in the cosmology that they provide, it is so perfectly balanced as to be, again, inconceivable that it could happen by accident. So, again, we can consider that this is a created realm that we live in. We are created, planned, designed beings, and as such, there is a creator. And it does seem, through many hints and allegations and things left unsaid, that our Creator is not disinterested, but rather very interested in us. And in fact, there appears to be a battle going on behind the veil that we can see for really our very souls. So we are not insignificant, but in fact, perhaps even one of the most significant things in the created universe as we know it. And that is that we have a creator who very much cares about us and is interested in not only what happens to us, but in the goings on in this place. And although sometimes they may seem quiet and silent, over time, again, it does seem as if there's actions on both sides, and it would appear from those who firmly believe in getting their power from who we would consider our enemy, that they are making such strides as to be having dropped the any pretense that it is quiet anymore, and they're in a sprint for the finish. Hey, Salted Cedar, how are you? Welcome. So to that extent, it does seem that they're doing a variety of things nefarious to prepare us for what we would call the New World Order. We have seen it this year, certainly, with what we all kind of term the beer bug or the hoax plague or the plandemic. They tell us that we are under lockdown for a pathogen that, even according to their own numbers, kills so much fewer than the flu or even the common cold every year. We know that they're lying about their numbers. It's plainly obvious. They lie about everything. That's plainly obvious. And they are continuing without any mitigation, it seems now, whatsoever, just to run as quickly as they can toward pushing us into what we would think are unacceptable situations of being completely at their mercy. So recently, I think, recently, over the past 10 years perhaps, we have become more and more familiar, I think, with this idea that things are leaking out into the open. And from my view, it seems to be, and I think also the view of others, it seems to be not a mistake and not even some of it by our own doing, but that is that these are bits of leaked information to provide, again, something of a patina of legitimacy and to give a sense of, I don't have a better way to put it than what I've said before, it's a litmus test. Some people will wake up, some people will not. And again, this is tangentially related in any case to the Awakening Project, and that what my discovery is, and my hypothesis is that we have been under a spell. Call it a magic spell if you want, but the power of suggestion, hypnosis is probably a better way to put it, at a trance-like state for a very long period of time, all of society, and largely influenced by, certainly in the past 100+ years, electronic media of various varying kinds, increasing in technology and increasing such an extent that we spend an enormous amount of screen time. And I have not yet watched it, but I've seen a lot of, ironically enough, information posted to social media from Netflix, which everybody was, cancel Netflix, on The Social Dilemma, and a documentary movie that apparently won an award that tells us how bad social media is for us and how they design it simply to get us addicted. Right, and one of the quotes from the movie is, the only industries that call their buyers, that call their subjects users, is illegal drugs and software. And I would even say that one of those, I'd add to that and say that at least, software is honest and say they call them end users, implying, at least drugs, they don't call them end users, just users, participants. In any case. So we've got this Agenda 21. So again, just like a litmus test. So this information gets out, including, I think, the nature of the cosmology lie, to such an extent that, again, it seems like it was intentionally dropped to work as sort of a litmus test, and that with this idea, this premise that we have been under hypnosis, under spell, the power of suggestion, it has long been shown. And in fact, in the first ever episode of Unintended Consequences, if you want to go back, you can get an idea of Aldous Huxley. I kind of broke down one of his conversations, his orations, in which he very clearly lays out how this works, and that there is the Pareto distribution, which is common throughout many things, the 80-20 principle, and about 20% of the people are extremely susceptible to the power of suggestion. Another 20% are very resistant to it. to degrees, and those 60% remaining in the middle are across the standard bell curve. And so using a variety of methods and means, they can improve that to somewhere around 95% of people who are, to one degree or another, under a hypnotic spell. And we see evidence of this, of course. You can see it every day in social media. When they drop something in the news, people respond to it unblinkingly and unthinkingly. They immediately begin to do the whole virtue signaling thing, where they tell everybody, how great they are, and by getting angry over what they're supposed to be angry over, cancel the people they're supposed to cancel, and it moves at the speed of Twitter outrage. So we are in what appears to be a program society, and on Wednesday nights on Secrets of Saturn, I often join Wayne McCroy and our host Jason Lindgren. Sometimes Crow 777 arrives, as well as other guests, and we break down often documents that Wayne, the brain McCroy, has found in his large digital library, where these things have been scripted for a long time, at least in the modern era, going back to the 1930s and 40s, and some of it prior to that. That they have drawn up plans for exactly their roadmap to bring us to what was outlined, again, by Aldous Huxley in Brave New World, and certainly George Orwell, 1984. These are, again, roadmaps. They're blueprints. They weren't just random prescient stories by people who were, able to sort of look into the future. They were very much, I believe, from Tavistock and other type social programming, social engineering sources. They were tasked with writing what would be a couple of novels, envisioning their way of looking at it, and then pushed into the public mindset. Why do you think it is that they were required reading in school? Because they wanted to tell you. And it's part of the revelation of the method. So, again, those of us who follow along, what we see is that there is some revelation of method that works both as sort of casting spells. In other words, they manifest their will by stating, speaking those things that are not as though they are. That's a quote from Scripture. And the manifestation of the will. It is my contention that the world around us was actually designed that way. It was designed to follow the will, and this is, again, speaking of Secrets of Saturn. At the end of the last show, I just, Crow said something, and it just in combination of some other stuff that I went, oh, shit. And so I've been looking at it this week, and I'm not ready to present that, but that is in part what led to this. But the idea of, and I was thinking about this while I was playing the opening noodle this morning, of the idea of, again, music and sound and vibration being the keys to the universe, because in music, the fundamental, what we would call the tonic, is made up of what we call keys. And these sound frequencies, again, cymatics, you can see a variety of shapes that are taken in media created by sound. And then we look back at the original creation story, both in the Bible as we know it, as well as many other extant sources and ancient traditions, that all of them have the world either spoken or sung into existence by its creator. The power of the voice. It didn't just wave a magic wand, or it was spoken into existence. And I think that there is a great deal of truth in that. That my view is that the creator made this world and put us in charge. He made us mini-me, such that we should be able to speak into existence what our will is, and manifest that we were designed to be able to create it much as he did. And that has been stolen from us. So we then flounder about as those with the power continue to do that. And so one of the things that they do is speak into existence what they will have happen. And also they tell us what that looks like. And they instigate these spells upon us, right? And it gives us an opportunity that if we do not respond, then so be it. right? So the telegraphing, what I call karmic shrugging. They tell us in an obtuse manner, as RV likes to say, truth in the movies and lies in the news. So he gives us, they give us this view of things to come, much like we saw in the movie Contagion, what's happening right now. To that extent, what they do is use not only the narrative of the storyline and all the electronic media, but all of it, since they own all of it. It's a full court press from the news, music, movies, television, comic books, everything that you can imagine, all using not only the surface and exoteric, but the esoteric and the power of not only influence using music and all the multimedia, but they're embedding and encoding beyond our conscious level a variety of things that we absorb in what we would call subliminal advertising or subliminal messaging. We've seen all kinds of evidence of this. And so it gets inside of us to such a way where we are running on autopilot, most of us, and on under a spell. There are some of us, and you are here today, who have awoken to this and are no longer under that spell. And once you begin to awaken, most people, again, within my survey anyway, there was a beginning sort of watershed moment. There's something that you go, that's just not right. And as you put it together, there is a moment where a cognitive dissonance sets in and you must make a choice to follow the information wherever it goes and no matter the cost, or let it go, because the implications are far too large that you have been lied to. For many people, it was September day after 10th in the year after Y2K, and those events that clearly changed the world as we know it. There was thereafter what they would tell us is a new normal. Security and surveillance state became public knowledge. And again, they keep telling us, Edward Snowden, whether he believes what he's doing or not, he is certainly a controlled asset. At the minimum, they gave him what they wanted him to tell, knowing he would tell it, and allowed him to do so. Or, he just still openly works for them. I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that what he told us is exactly what they wanted us to know, and they wanted us to do exactly as we did, which is just go, oh, that's horrible, isn't it? And then nothing happens. Oh, fuck, that coffee's good. So they have put a bunch of people under a spell. They keep telling us what's going on. They use what we would call, again, telegraphing or predictive programming to show in a variety of methods, from the Illuminati card game to movies, music, television, these sort of things. They tell us what's going on, but in such an oblique way that if you claim that that's truth, you can immediately be dismissed as, you can't even tell the difference between fiction and reality. You think the stuff in Enemy of the State, you think the stuff in Conspiracy Theory, the movie, is real? You need help. Maybe some medication, because, boy, that just ain't right. So they have a variety of means. They've been using the term conspiracy theory since the 1960s, created, coined, weaponized by the CIA to dismiss anyone who asked questions about the Kennedy assassination, which we now know, again, was a setup start to finish. All of it to control the population. So why am I telling you all stuff that you already know? Okay, let's get back to this. Where's that? Here. Okay. So Agenda 21, again, this is not something we made up when it comes to things like adrenochrome and the pedo elite even. I know some people laugh at the idea, but, like the shape-shifting reptilians, if it is at least a non-human entity, and I think it is, who seems to be what we would consider immortal, at least living much longer than we do, who are the ones truly in power. They are at the top of the pyramid. You'll notice that the eye is separate from the remaining part of the pyramid. And I think that's likely that the people really running the show are not entirely or even at all human. but they influence in such a way to serve them, and they get people who want power and control to play along. And so those are the ones that we see. But people, yeah, lizard people, if you will. I mean, I think that's again, a comic book version. What we're given is sort of a comic book version. But again, the original story of in the garden, in the book of Genesis, is that the serpent is the one who deceived Eve and was therefore thereafter cursed to be on their belly, to basically be underground, that they would bruise our heel and we would bruise their head. And it says their seed. Right, and we're also told that if they are, fallen angels, and then angels weren't supposed to really reproduce, although certainly some did in the insurrection, Genesis 8 experiment, 6 experiment, or 8. Just looking. Anyway, not enough coffee. Anyway, so yeah. I mean, so lizard people, again, not like we're shown in the movies. It's not as silly as that, but we are shown in a variety again of ancient cultures, people that look like lizard people who were said to, even according to the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, be able to hypnotize people, to making them think that they were human, presented themselves as human. So again, do I know what it is? No, I can't really make any claims. I'm just saying that's what it looks like. There's a preponderance of evidence that says that's at least a possibility, if not likely, because people just don't behave in a way of so long-term perfect plans. And as we look deeper and deeper, right, into things like gematria and numerology and astrology and all the things that are mind-blowing, and even people as mind-blowingly, prescient as Walter Russell, right, the Universal One, guys like that who are, and Tesla, and people who are really putting it out, right? Yeah, no, I agree, Bob. It's kind of a tough one. Again, I don't really care, because I mean, I'm not making again any claims. I'm just saying this is what I see, and this is what I think is the appears to be the preponderance of evidence that they are that people just don't behave in a way over such a long period of time. They're so short-sighted and short-motivated. And again, people like, as I was saying, Walter Russell and guys like this, and brilliant people, Newton, right, kept looking, he was looking for the truth in alchemy and never found it. So to me, that seems again like a harder way to go. But this stuff is, I think, just beyond human knowledge. Even just brilliant humans I just don't think they could do the depth that what we see. It is just so so thick. Yeah, I don't care about Owen. I mean, I like Owen, but I don't care. I don't care what anybody thinks. If Dad's good, if me and Dad are good, I'm good. So it doesn't really matter. So I get back to this Agenda 21. Again, people in our community, we talk about it more than just a little bit, but we didn't just make it up, right? So we didn't make these things up. These stories of lizard people, these stories of adrenochrome, these stories of pedophiles and cannibals. We didn't make this shit up. I mean, there's evidence for it throughout history, as graveled as it is, and as distorted and contorted as it is. There's evidence, and it's not a little bit of evidence, and it's not from crazy people. It's from people who are trying to tell us something. In the same way, I see much scripture, right, is told by people who had a supernatural experience, who went to extraordinary lengths to write it down. And we can dismiss it if we want to, but I think it would be unwise to do so, especially since what we see of the ancient world is far beyond our current capabilities. It would be, I think, ridiculous and unwise to dismiss what they say as mere fantasy. So we have Agenda 21. Again, this is adopted by the United Nations. Sustainable development, I think you know probably pretty much about it and what its goals are. It's tied in closely with Agenda 2030. Who simply expands upon that. And so if you're not familiar, again, you can easily find these things. It doesn't take, I mean, again, it's not hidden. Hi, Don. Great to have you. So it's not difficult to find this stuff and transforming our world. They're telling you what they want to do, which is to essentially control the world. They're calling it sustainable and making it sound good, but essentially what they want to do is to put people into smart mega cities and control them, and then what they call rewild all the rural areas and keep people out of that, so that we cannot rule ourselves and have the sovereignty and the freedom that we were given by our Creator. They want to be our Lord and Master. They want to be God. So, with that in mind, I have mentioned on several occasions that with what they're doing currently, it seems as if to accomplish those goals of Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030, imagine trying to get a bunch of people forcibly into a city. You would, again, have to do it by force, and there'd be a lot of shitstorm. I don't think they're above that, certainly, but I do think there are easier ways to do it, and that is to do what they've done continuously, which is to get people to love their enslavement, as Aldous Huxley says, to adore and treat as a parent the state. It's a nanny state, and Stockholm Syndrome is certainly everywhere, and we see it all the time. People wearing masks love their enslavement, and they want to keep everyone else down. So much like the crabs who will draw back in other crabs that try to get out of the pot. That's what these people. That's what these Karens are, right? They may not like wearing a mask, but by God, they're not going to let anybody else not wear a mask if they don't get to wear one or not wear one either. So we have this situation. And so this last year, there was much made about November 3rd, 2019, expecting perhaps something at a football game in Seattle. There was a lot of stuff there. And then it didn't happen, of course, discredited. And I just thought, from my perspective, again, I can't guarantee anything, but there was a lot of information that did seem to indicate Seattle and November might be something to it. Again, the way that they do it. And so people have asked also what, about the election. And of course, I don't think anything about politics. It's WWE wrestling in different suits. But it's basically the same thing. It's theater. For those who wish to hate one another, you choose your team and then fight the other people with no control over the outcome. So, what about the election? Again, I think they're all controlled, which again runs counter to the Q narrative, and I apologize if people are bought into that because I just don't. I think trust the plan is just a way to get you to sit on your hands and let somebody else, let the nanny state again do it for you. Exactly the same. So there's no real hope there. There's no one coming to save you there, and don't cheer on martial law when it comes, because it will come, I think. And it's not to put these people in Gitmo or the Clink. Now, it is even possible that they might claim that is coming or that happened. They might claim to clean house. I just don't think that is actually going to happen. That's not how they work. So if they do a changeover event, it's not, whatever comes after is far worse by orders of magnitude than what we have now. They'll sell it as something great, but it won't be. So how indeed would you get people to give up their rights? Well, you can certainly see how quickly you do it with an invisible contagion that kills almost no one. Fear. We talk about fear porn, and we talk about these things because we see it very quickly, very clearly. But so far, what we see is that what they've told us in terms of the beer bug and that sort of stuff hasn't really hit home, right? So there's not this big depopulation that we keep hearing about, and certainly that would make a difference. Well, what they have been telling us, and back to the idea of the election, right? See, I've said before, I'll never bet against The Simpsons, and so The Simpsons show Trump in a casket. I suspect that the way it'll play out, again, just not prognosticating because I'm just going with what I see, but they've hit it so many times, and it might be a miss, but it does certainly that's a possibility, right? Is that they would give him the election, make the left freak out, not my president. They've already said that they won't accept it. And then somebody goes for, an assassination event, a Kennedy event. We'll see. We'll see what happens, or, heart attack or whatever. The COVID gets him, whatever. But again, I don't bet against The Simpsons. I think it is all a script, and they keep showing us. And so to that end, one of the things that they've been showing us, and I don't think, here's another thing I want to throw in there. This is pinball kind of pachinko machines, my way my brain works. I'm trying to pull all this this stuff together, I promise. But I don't think they waste any energy, right? So when they do a bunch of practice events, we've seen for false flag events, for example, always with one of the major ones, they're doing a similar practice or simulation event very close by, very close proximity, both in time and space. So sometimes on the very same day in the very same city, they're doing exactly that event, as was the case with, again, the original event 19 years ago. So I don't think they waste any of it. So they've been doing an enormous amount of practicing of a particular set of events. And I've spoken of this before, which is what we call an EMP or a taking down of the power grid. And they tell us over and over how fragile it is, how it's made up of old technology, and give us a variety of reasons why it might go out. From cyber terrorism, that somebody hacks into the system and brings it down, and they've already named state actors, that China is looking into it, Iran looking into it, North Korea, a variety of different state actors who have looked into or even tried already to bring down our power system, to natural events, sunspots, space weather, that sort of stuff. So they've been telling us for some time that we've been vulnerable. In fact, I've been tracking it now, going back to about 2007, but really in earnest right after 2012 is when most of the new articles and white papers began to appear. Let me switch back over here and I will show you this. Okay, so again, numerous articles about this topic, and increasing at a level about the same pace, and even actually quicker in terms, not as many articles, but at a quicker pace than did the asteroid tail. And certainly they've been setting up the alien intervention for a very long time. But this looks like one, again, could be very effective. So they have been running a number of these, what they call dark sky or black sky events. And these exercises have been running all over the world, all of the Five Eyes intelligence countries in particular. Again, if you're not familiar with that, the United States, Canada, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand are comprised of Five Eyes intelligence assets. And in every one of those countries, including other allies, Israel and South Africa, I know for certain, as well as I think at least a couple other South American countries, although, Argentina is having real ones. But they've been practicing for these events for some time now, and with increasing frequency. And in fact, there's one going on right now, a tabletop version that's running from the 1st of September through the end of October, that they have been preparing for these dark sky exercises. And basically what has come out of this is that if the power went off, let's say, so there are 3 grids in the United States specifically, and so I'm sure that the similar system, if you're listening from international places, we have listeners all over the world, and welcome to those folks hey, Beth, welcome. Welcome to those folks also from all over. We have listeners in Finland. We've had 2 guests from Finland already, as well as Poland, Czechoslovakia, Australia, New Zealand, UK, all over the place. And so, but in the United States, we have 3 primary power grids: the East Coast, the Central or Texas grid, primarily based in Texas, but going to the central part of the U.S., and the Western grid. 3 separate grids that are somewhat interconnected, but able to be disconnected easily from one another. And there have been several power takedowns over the past few years, typically fairly short, usually within 48 hours. And they have what they call cascading failures. And so when one power station goes down, they can't respond fast enough to put power back into the grid. It keeps dropping these transformers out because they get undervolted, and it causes all kinds of problems, and they're trying to fill up too much power and they can't handle it. So they keep telling us how fragile the system is. So not just its own inherent problems, but then again, outside influences, everything from cyber attacks, space weather, and the big one, EMP, electromagnetic pulse, which they have told us since the beginning of the quote, nuclear area, that nuclear weapons would cause an electromagnetic pulse. This is how they say they came across this, that would take out anything electronic. So any electronic circuitry whatsoever would be completely fried. So not just taking down the power grid, but everything electronic, your computer, your car, all your smart technology, the Internet of Things, all those things, not just not able to function without power, but destroyed because the electronics that control them would be completely shot. And as I worked in designing some audio products that were what we called mature technologies, working with vacuum tubes, for reasons that they sound really good in audio world, but the availability of some parts is what we would call JAN spec, or Joint Army-Navy specification, because they developed a whole bunch in the 70s and 80s. They developed a whole bunch of micro tubes, primarily for communication purposes, because vacuum tubes in a communication system aren't as susceptible. Well, they don't get destroyed like printed circuit and transistors do. Transistor circuits are simply the gate, open, closed, and if you throw too much energy at it, it will destroy the gate and just cause everything to short circuit. But a vacuum tube, is a true thermonic engine with a cathode and an anode and a gate between them, so you can allow what we're told is electrons. I don't think it actually works that way, but you've basically got a cloud of power in there, and you've got a gate. But it will take the hit and then continue functioning. And so we were told that the space shuttle had a tube electronic communication system for when they went through the atmosphere. Of course, I don't buy that. But certainly the military has a backup system to this day that is powered entirely by vacuum tubes for that purpose, that would survive a nuclear incursion, or at least an electromagnetic pulse, such that they could continue to function. But of course, there's not that in the civilian world, and certainly with the, again, consider how crazy it is that a few years back they went by law to a digital broadcasting system for television, that they could no longer broadcast an analog. Like, again, they're so concerned about whether you can watch a replay on sports ball that it has to be the law that they changed the broadcasting. Clearly, again, there's something going on there. That there's digital transmission carries more stuff in the wave. They can embed more things in it. And I think it does have to do with the fact that there are ways to capture it and see it better in the analog domain than in the digital domain. Because in the analog domain, you would see a waveform. The digital domain, it's all ones and zeros. You would have to know the actual algorithm to de-scramble it to understand what the embedded signature is. So we got that going for us, which is nice. All right. So, so we've got this idea that, again, an electromagnetic pulse would then take down not only your power grid and all of it, but everything electronic, such that it wouldn't, even if power were restored, it would not be able to be used again. And so that would be, again, most people's modern vehicles, everything from about 1998 forward. So that would include, again, most vehicles on the road today would be completely disabled by an electromagnetic pulse of any size, as would, again, everything. And so not just, again, power, but of course your water would shut off, because it takes, all the stuff that medical systems, like everything would shut down, including, guess what, banking. Right, because of the electronics. So they put in, especially if they put in an electronic version of, the digital cryptocurrency, you're in a lot of trouble. But all your records, most records have been digitized of every kind. If all that stuff were destroyed, it would, again, you'd have to have. And so this is what some people are calling an IMPCO, right, which is a change electromagnetic. They call it plasma, but electromagnetic pulse changeover event, something that they could use to really reset everything. And I think that's possible, and not only possible, but they're definitely planning for it. Because again, if they took out the power for any significant period of time in the United States, so let's say there was an EMP such that took out, if it just took down the power for 36 hours, most major cities would be the better part of zombie movies, right? All your food, perishable food, would be, destroyed, and very few people can cook without a microwave. Again, and if you didn't have electricity, most people couldn't cook on an electric stove. Even if you had gas, right, some of the distribution systems, all that stuff, electronic by switches, you'd be in deep doo-doo, and definitely be hungry after 3 days. Well, imagine if it went longer, like a week, right? Again, these simulations show how just terrible things would be. And if it went for a couple of months, we're talking a conflagration that you cannot imagine. However, that's just the power. If you actually did an EMP event and destroyed all the electronics that were not under the direct control of the powers that be, everybody would be completely, immediately dependent upon their government. And if you did this, again, not just in the United States, but worldwide, you would have an entire population immediately and completely dependent upon their government. Only the Amish and a few developing nations, people in perhaps Africa, South America, native tribes, would be able to do anything at all. Everyone would be completely and fully on the direct, immediate, and complete dependence on. I mean, FEMA would be your hero, right? You would need food, you would need water, and all the things. So, does it look as though that's possible? I think it's not only possible, but I think it's probable. Do I know when? Absolutely not. But here's what I want to tell you. This is why I'm doing this today, not just because of this information, which has been out there for a while. It's easy to find. You can look all over. It's not difficult to find. They're not advertising it so much openly, just like all the other stuff. But it is certainly available, and you can certainly go out there and find it. Just a few searches. Right. So you've got a variety of different places, government agencies that you can look at as well, discussing these sorts of things. But here's what here's what made this a little bit, I don't know, more urgent. Again, I don't know that's going to happen tomorrow, but so wouldn't an EMP shut down their AI? Well, here's again, only. It's usually what they're looking at right now, right, is not completely nationwide, but they're like local things, right? So like localized weapons, EMP weapons specifically, or some of them what they call nukes, or there are direct EMP pulse weapons that I've seen in Janes that are attributed to both China and Russia. It's like an EMP cannon, shoots a pulse that goes about 100 miles. Its effective operating area is about 30 miles. Really, it would wipe out everything in its direct line of fire. Some of them do go in a complete 360-degree field area, but most of them that are effective over larger areas are pulsed weapons that are directional. And operate in a variety of bandwidths that way, so it is more like a cannon. So if you were protecting your own, right, you would be able to hold that down. But here's something that occurred this last week, and I may get in a little trouble for this, but I will tell you that I didn't personally sign anything. So. But everyone else was required to sign non-disclosure agreements. I didn't. I just asked the right questions of the right people. But some very curious things occurred, and it made me want to tell you about it because I've been following along with this for some time. So, as I've alluded to before, I am an independent consultant. I do consulting for a variety of different clients, but one primary client that I work for, every week, pretty much all day, every day, other than other things that I take on, and primarily dealing with applied physics, and a large part of that has to do with right now, planar wave calculations and doing acoustic spaces and designing audio-visual systems for a variety of clients, including houses of worship and a lot of municipalities and things like that. And AV systems, I basically audit them and make sure that they're not missing anything, or make sure all the components are there, and usability, feasibility, that sort of stuff. And so I make sure that it all happens, as well as making sure that they have all the right components that they need, the right kind of wire for distribution, and that sort of stuff. What troop movement? Okay, so yes, Winston, perhaps, but they could also do it from airframes. The Navy has this stuff as both in airborne as well as ships. There's a variety of different ways to deploy it. But here's the scoop: is that so the local power distribution, PUD, which is Public Utilities Division, contracted us to do some work, and it was fairly hush-hush and rush. So it wasn't on our regular work calendar, and everybody who actually was on site working had to sign, who was actually doing the installation. So I was able to be on site for a minute, but to do a site survey rather than actually the work. So I didn't have to do that because I wasn't there for the period of time that So anyway, we had to get clearance and all that sort of stuff. But very oddly, it was the place that we did the work, the facility, was under the auspices of FEMA and DOE, Department of Energy. And FEMA is the Federal Emergency Management Agency. So the work to be done was basically considered confidential, not top secret, but confidential work, at least while we were doing it, and no one was allowed on site. In fact, the really odd part and what piqued my interest is the site manager for maintenance, who has been there for 25 plus years. No one is allowed on that facility, that particular area, without a chaperone, without somebody holding their hand from FEMA or one of the approved agencies that are on site there. There are a variety, I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But he wasn't even allowed to be in that area without somebody holding his hand the whole time. So not just a pass, but somebody there with him the entire time. And he's been there for 25 years as the manager of facilities. And so it was all, again, pretty hush-hush. No one was allowed to be anywhere in that particular part of the facilities, and the monitoring without somebody there holding their hand at the whole time. And what occurred, and so I had to ask them, I was very curious, and I wanted to ask some questions. I had to ask them in a way to appear to be not really interested in the outcome, just the technology itself, because I just played the nerd card and how what we were doing was going to integrate into that and that sort of stuff. And so they were really reticent to discuss it at first and kind of hostile. But then when I kind of took the approach, I was just again a nerd. I got a little bit more out of it. So basically, what we did was introducing a variety of new ways for them to. We had to do really with the communications, but communicating and monitoring power outages specifically and exclusively. Only power outages. So a way for them to monitor it over a wide area and to communicate with a variety of government agencies. That's really all that this upgrade was about. And so those agencies involved were, of course, FEMA, Department of Energy, Department of Defense, NORAD, and NOAA. NOAA, which was very weird to me. But none of what I saw and determined had anything to do with preventing it, right? So nothing had to do with shoring it up or an infrastructure build out, but rather the ability to monitor and direct traffic in the event of one. And had it been a substantial upgrade, it wouldn't have been hush-hush. It would have actually been something that their PR department would have made a big deal out of, made a splash, that they were investing in, the utilities and that sort of stuff, and shoring up their security. That's not what they were doing. What they're doing was very hush hush. Didn't want anybody to know what they were setting up to better monitor and manage the results of a power failure. So, and that goes, and it was designed to go immediately online, and the call came in after this big shutdown. So we put off a lot of installation jobs, of course, because of the lockdowns. And the only work that we really mostly did was for approved government agencies during that period of time. Some court system stuff, a couple of schools, and a couple of other facilities. One of the major facilities we're working on was a casino, so it's Indian, and they still can't use it if their event center. They're just redoing it. They took the opportunity of not being able to have any events to build it out. And so still a lot of stuff that had to be taken care of for the lockdown and all sorts of nonsense that they had to go through. But still, again, most of the stuff that we did having to do specifically for mostly government agencies. But this one was very interesting and unique, and especially their desire to keep it kind of quiet and hush-hush. And again, could I get in trouble? I didn't personally sign any non-disclosure agreements, and I'm not giving any other names of anybody else involved. So I think I'll be all right. And if not, oh well. So you got that going for you, which is nice. So it appears that imminently, and I won't say next week, next month, next year, maybe next decade. So the increasing frequency which I see them talking about it and going through this is at a pace that would rival some of the other events. And again, some of them I didn't realize until afterwards. Like many of the events, of course, that we see predictive programming for have already occurred, and we only in retrospect were able to discover that some of those things had happened. But now, once you get a sense of it and the ability to take a deeper look into the means and methods, and you see that fingerprint on it, it becomes much easier to find out what's going on and to at least see where they're involved. And then so we're going to have to work backwards and infer what's happening from that. But an EMP would bring most people back to nature. It would pretty quick if they survived. Fun song for sure, right? So some people would, why don't I? Well, yeah, the minute you got in, because so I'm not on site, and I don't have that kind of juice, right? So, that what you're talking about is, again, FEMA, Department of Energy. I think they would notice. So at least I'm telling you what to expect. I don't think prevent it, and so I'm not prepared to go put it, be the saboteur in this case. It would just land me in the pokey pretty quick, and not be very successful. Oh, that's good. All right, so that's what I wanted to tell you this morning, is that there does seem to be motion in that direction to hip you to the idea that this is likely coming as part of the whole thing. I do suspect that they will also, just if I'm going to prognosticate, which I'm not very prone to do, but I will throw out that it does appear as if the idea of an asteroid or meteor comet strike of some kind is probably in the cards, at least a small to moderate sized one, maybe not a civilization ending version, but probably tied in with the alien deception as well. So we'll maybe talk about that at a different time, but I think those are probably part of it. But it would seem to me that one of the easiest ways to get people herded into these mega cities and to beg to be there and to fight for a way in is to do something of this nature. Either just shut off the power, which is probably the easiest, or if you really want to reset civilization, electromagnetic pulse, destroy everybody's stuff, and that would be most of us, but they protect their own in such a ways that they have all the power and all the cards. And I just wanted to point out the meaning of words that, again, think about it, that they have the power, not just energy is equal to power. And those over the last century who have had the power have controlled the energy. So just want to point that out, that, again, words have meaning. Currency is used both in electricity and in money. It's all tied together. So, yes, and so some of the many comments I see in chat, I'm right with you. This is, I think, in part why I feel so. And again, they sort of happen separate from one another, but related, is the sense of being nudged to try to tribe up, to get in a group that is self-sufficient in such a way as that we not only survive but flourish in such an environment, at least for a period of time. Until they, started going cleaning up. But for a period of time, we would be able to do much better than most and not have to go to those smart cities. That kind of came before, and again, separate from this idea that they may be moving at a quicker pace, and maybe that is why I feel more pushed to do so. But I agree, Mojo Shop. We have the power because if we're connected to the primary source of power, which is, to me, the creator. Exactly, Ceiling Fan Man. The vibe is the tribe. The vibe draws the tribe, and the tribe's got the vibe. And so we make our own power and the right kind of power. Again, observe nature and copy it. So this is where I'm at. I want to spend perhaps more time in the future taking a closer look at what's necessary to create those kind of environments. There's a variety of people looking at doing it, of course. Those I'm sure people such as Owen Benjamin, Benjamin Balderson, and others are trying to do these things, and I think that's exactly the right thing to start doing, each in their own way, surely. I would love to be involved in a group that we care about each other and that we're family, and that we begin to prepare in such a way as we, not only survive but can flourish in such an event. So, with that, do you guys have any question? Yes, I would love to have you try my coffee. It is amazing. I don't deny it. And so there you go. So if you got any questions, anything you'd like to ask or comment about, I do want to say again, thanks real quick to. Oh God, I had so many people I wanted to thank, but David Leonard, and again, thank you so much for just being a good friend and praying for your family and those out at Trafalgar Square today in the UK, protesting the mask and just standing up against the nonsense going on over there. Let's see. So you're not sure you want to survive, Liz? Well, I understand that, right? I mean, I do get it, but for me. If I have any way that I can help other people, or do anything to support others, I'll do it as long as I can. What am I baking? Um, I don't know what you mean. Little love will die trying. I'm with you on that. Hey, disciple of the Messiah, thank you for being here. I so appreciate all of you who come here regularly, and I just or when you can. I appreciate it so much, and I'm beginning to know many of you well. Some better than others, but just the conversations that we've had, I really genuinely have love and affection for you guys. It is again, many of the people that I have met began with taking their information from doing the Awakening Project, and the stories that people have told me of their awakening journey just again touched my heart, and I realized what great people I'm dealing with here, people of such integrity and quality. And these are the folks that I would have no problem, and in fact, very much want to spend time with in a small community. This is exactly what I would want. And so I would like to again explore this idea. I'm not right now, in a position. I am not collecting money for it or anything. I don't necessarily want to be, the leader. It's not. That's not really, my thing. I'd love to throw in and involve. I can do sweat equity. I have a lot of skills that I can do, from cooking to designing to running a variety of things, and have different ways of making money, even if we need to give ourselves some fiat currency to get started. But I just think it should be a collective, right? It's not like, my vision that I'm trying to start. I know a couple of people with visions that I'd like to even maybe support that have some good ideas. Again, my wife and I have worked through numerous of the ideas about how to make a society work, or at least things to make sort of equitable and fair in a way that is not the kind of government that we see that was given to us, even though, the Constitution is a well-written document. But to me, it has always been for the purpose of enslavement, right? It's always been for the purpose to give you the impression that you're free when you are not. So yes, it is difficult as it is, love thy neighbor. I absolutely agree with that. Those are the teachings of Jesus. Primarily is love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself. And I think in those things, and of course it's also the Apostle Paul said the entire law is fulfilled in love, and I believe that as well. I'm not a very legalistic person. I'm not very religious. I do have a relationship with my Creator, which has profoundly changed and improved my life in every way, and I recommend it for people. And beyond that, again, I just have to say everybody's on their own journey, and I support them in doing that. Yes, Cammie can play with magnets, and I want to play with Cammie. I mean, in a platonic, solid sort of way. But yeah, it is. I want to hang out with Zach and Cammie and Bob and try to figure out this world that we live in. I'm fascinated and curious by all the things around us, and the more that I know, the more amazing this world is. So it's something that I want to do. Let's see. Yes, yeah, Bob. No threat from me. I'm fat, bald, and ugly. So again, Ted and everybody, thank you so much, Ted and Sue and Karen, Bob and Cammie and Winston, Sue, Jason, everybody. I'm so glad that you came. It's a delight to have you here. Think about what I said and just consider it. Consider how you might be better prepared, and what we might do perhaps to get together. I know that Jason has been looking at properties from time to time. I have. A variety of people have been looking into ways that we might do this and how we can accomplish this kind of thing. So start thinking it over. Hit me up. My email is in the description, unintended.consequences3@gmail.com. You can send me a letter directly, P.O. Box 2248, and that's Lynnwood, Washington. Here, let me put this up here. There we go. P.O. Box 2248, Lynnwood, Washington, 983-036. Unintended.consequences3@gmail.com. If you'd like to support these efforts in any way, you can send it to me, paypal.me at /Great Baldini. Again, I'm not good at e-bagging or anything, and it's so far right now, I'm just kind of, when people do donate, I thank them profusely. I send them stickers. Oh, and if you want, I do not consent stickers, still have some of those. You can send me an email with your mailing address or however you want to contact me, and I'd be happy to send those to you for free. But I send those to also people as just a thank you gift, and trying to figure out the best way to proceed. I have spent some money on gear, right, computer and different things, and that's necessary. And right now, again, just trying to figure out the best way to approach the next. So trying to fund the next thing. And if people have needs, I try to donate to that as well. So when people are in a spot and they genuinely have need, I try to contribute as I'm able there. So with that, again, I appreciate you guys so much. You're amazing. And don't forget, coming up tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., as usual, on Sunday morning, we have Ancient Wisdom for a Modern World. And I hope you join us for that. Just a little reading through the book of Proverbs and probable noodling in that as well. And then tomorrow evening, Wayne McCroy is back with me for episode 9 of, what is it? Sola Scriptura. Yeah, I'm trying to do too many things at once here. Collect all these goodies in one place. Hey, Joe, I appreciate that. You are a good friend as well. So with that, I think that I will begin to wrap it up here. We'll leave you with, speaking of Joe Ray, a song that we put together. When was this? I want to say, 1993, I think. I don't even know if I can find it now. What did I do with that? I suppose I'll have to do it here. How about that? Okay, so this is called More Than I've Ever Seen. Again, I appreciate you guys coming in. Oh yeah, tomorrow evening, 5 p.m. with Wayne McCroy Jr., Sola Scriptura, episode 9. Thanks, guys.
Still burns inside with a light that I cannot hide. I walk on the edge of time, ride the winds of destiny. I hear the thunders coming, bringing me to my knees, like nothing I've ever seen. In my mind I hear the voices calling. In my mind I see the planets collide. In my mind I feel the end beginning. It's like waking up from a dream. It's more than I've ever seen. Shadows fall like angels' tears, leaves darkness on